Hey, Trinity staff family. I wanted to give you some information if you missed our impromptu meeting on Tuesday morning, or if you just wanted to be able to have something that you could refer back to or document in terms of some changes that we're going to be making in terms of our staff team and our structure here really fast. And again, this shouldn't be any surprise to you on the backside of the news that Jim Felver, Cynthia Sullivan, and people like Lydia Ahn will be transitioning off of our staff for amazing reasons over the course of the next few weeks and months. Again, this is one of those things for us that's really bittersweet. We love the fact that our brothers and sisters are responding to the Spirit of the living God to take them into these next chapters of adventure, wherever they will be going, and we want to bless them as they go. And so we love that. But man, what a bummer. I mean, these people are all leaving huge holes, not only on our staff team, but just in our hearts. I mean, how do you replace a Jim Felver, a Cynthia Sullivan, a Lydia Ahn, who have just made indelible imprints on our staff culture? And so we're going to focus specifically in this video and the email that follows on some changes that will be happening in terms of how we've been attempting to move quickly to compensate for the gaps that have been specifically revolving around Jim Felver as he transitions off of our staff team. And so hopefully this will help you a little bit as you go. On Tuesday morning, one of the things that we thought was great was Pastor Marvin talked about how with each shift like this, there is also an opportunity. And so we want to be able to be quick to pivot, to build processes and plans that both honor our existing processes, that honor our existing staff team, but that swing to bear so that we don't have any hiccups or we don't sense any speed bumps in terms of the way that we do ministry. We'd really like for things to just move quickly so that you're not hindered in any way as we make some of these shifts and transitions. So here's the thing. With these shifts, there have been a couple of opportunities and a couple of things that we've had to kind of keep in mind as we've had to go. The first is simply this, and we've talked about this or we've alluded to this in other frameworks, but because of the nature of where we are as a church in terms of our giving, in terms of the coaching of our governing elders, in terms of just some of the goals and desires that we have as administrators and as leaders, we need to make sure that we continue to honor our policy. It's not really a policy, it's more of a practice at this point of attrition and non-replacement. And what that means is that whenever we have someone leave our staff team, we need to do the best that we can to try to economize their role, redistribute it if we are able, and minimize the number of hires to compensate. We simply cannot have our staffing percentage continuing to climb, and we need to actually be moving it in the opposite direction whenever we have an opportunity. Now, we've done everything that we can to make sure that we don't have to let anyone go or reduce our force size. But it does mean that whenever we have someone leave our staff team, we have to look at creative ways to compensate for their functions and absorb as many of them as we can in ways that make sense wherever possible. So we already knew that as Jim leaves, we were going to try to figure out ways to not have to replace Jim. And so that's for a couple of reasons. It's for the percentages of the staff. Part of it is honestly because trying to replace Jim Felver is a bit like hunting for a unicorn. I just don't know any other people like Jim Felver. And so as a result, we will not be hiring a new Jim. We will not be replacing our director of administration. We already knew that that would probably be likely in whatever the solution forward looks like. We just will be eliminating that position. The second thing is that because of the amount of things that Jim knows and because of the number of things that Jim has on his plate, we do need to be able to do two things. We want to honor Jim's transition. We want to honor the role that Jim has had, but we need to move very quickly to make sure that we pick up as many of those functions as we can and redistribute them as best we are able. As a result, we already knew, starting at the very first time that we met with the Ministry, Administration, and Finance team, or as I like to call them, the Madmen team, that we were going to need to increase responsibilities for some of the people already in that department. We already knew that Barb and Linda and Susanna would be picking up significant chunks of some of the things that Jim has been just keeping on day to day for us as we've gone. So we already knew that there would need to be some picking up, and we knew that we'd need to do that very, very quickly. Because Jim gave us 4 weeks, that's amazing, but there's a lot that needs to be transitioned and downloaded. So we need to move quickly. We need to honor our processes, but we also knew that it would probably have to be the kind of thing that would probably operate a little quicker than maybe we're used to here at Trinity. The next thing is that we also knew that there would be some areas not only that we would pick up, with existing resources, but that we would have to fill. There are things that Barb, Linda, Susanna, myself, and others, we just can't do in the absence of Jim. So there probably will likely be a couple of roles that we may need to candidate internally and that we may need to hire from the outside if we don't have anyone on our current existing staff team to be able to fill those roles. But we really want to continue to honor, as Pastor Marvin says, the fact that we believe that the body has what the body needs. And so if we can't pick up those roles and redistribute them, we already know that there will probably be some areas that we have to fill up. A couple of examples of that would be we likely will have to hire someone, whether internally or externally, to be a bookkeeper. That's functionality that Jim has provided. It's not functionality that we can completely absorb by asking Barb or Linda or Susanna to just pick up as a function of their job. So we likely will have to hire some version of that. And there are some other things that we just already know are important, but that we don't currently have, like HR. We've seen that surface in our staff squads, in our staff meetings, and other survey tools. We need to develop a better HR system of functionality, whether we hire it, whether we hire a part-time person to be on HR for us, like Natalie Wilmarth used to be, whether we insource it. For instance, we'll be doing anti-harassment training with our friend Jody. If we like Jody, we may actually just contract her to be sort of our insourced HR person. She does that for a living. She operates a company that provides HR functionality for small to medium-sized businesses. Or we may be able to operate it as a team where we have people like Anita Phillip and Carl Borkovink and Dan Singer, and they operate as kind of a think tank for HR-related issues. We're not sure yet, but we're reasonably certain that that's going to have to be filled in some way. And so we already know that some of those things will be true. And the final thing is, we already know that there are some gray areas. In the process of speed and reorganization, we know that there will be certain things that we'll have to just look at and figure out where they fit and how best they fit. A couple of examples would be things like bookstore, volunteer processing, and even front office. Those things have currently resided under MadMin, but we don't know if they're optimal to stay there. So as a result, we'd like to have additional discussions with Kathy and Pam and Amy and Cynthia to try to figure out, like, where do those processes go? Do they stay within the framework of where they are currently tethered, or do we redistribute them to other departments like adults or some of those kinds of things like that? So those are some of the issues that have been in play. So over the course of the last few weeks, we've really worked hard to have many meetings very, very quickly with people that are in those existing teams, coaches and people that are external, people like some of our elders and experts like people like Blake on organizational management, to just ask about potential models that we could utilize for moving forward. And really what we've settled on is to actually to build a new department called operations. Operations will essentially fuse both facilities and administration with sort of a 50-50 balance to each. And that will be a whole new department. We will still have admin and facilities, but they'll really be grouped under operations. And the following outlines the quick basics of how operations will function. Operations will encompass facilities and MadMin will still include, for now at least, the functions of finance and accounting, IT, HR, bookstore, and front office. As I've mentioned, existing staff will pick up as many of these functions as possible and create redundancies and backups wherever we are able. And we'll candidate any gaps that are identified. Under operations, facilities will still include functions, again, at least for now, such as maintenance, setup, cleaning, landscaping, some of our scheduling and CCB functions. And again, existing staff will step up or pick up as many of those as we can, and we will identify gaps that we may have to hire or candidate internally and externally as we go. We're also going to be relying heavily on Mike Weller. Many of you may know Mike. Mike is our treasurer here at Trinity. He's a CPA. He is a longtime friend, asset, member. He's just an amazing guy. And we're actually going to be contracting Mike to walk alongside us with his firm to be able to make sure that our accounting processes continue to operate with excellence and accountability as we go along the way. And then we decided that in the process of building operations that we would need to hire a director of operations to assume responsibility at an apex level for how operations functions and in order to provide leadership for those two components. Now, normally here at Trinity Church, our processes basically work like this. When we're seeking to find a person to fit a new role, whether it's a leadership role or any other role, we basically walk through three identified processes. The first is just what I call 50% or more. And that means that if we have a person on our existing staff team that's already doing 50% or more of a new job that's being created, opened, or organized, they can be moved into that position without a full internal or external hiring process. Now, we've done this in the past when we built our adult ministries department, and we moved Jeff Schneider into our director of adult ministries. You might remember we didn't candidate internally or externally for that because 50% or more of what adult ministries was doing was already under Jeff's purview. In addition, when we hired our coordinator for local outreach, which is currently occupied by Laura Borkovink, we did not internally candidate and we didn't externally candidate because 50% of what Laura was doing was already local outreach. That was an easy shift for us to make. And so whenever possible, if we look at an optimally suited internal candidate who's already doing 50% or more of the job, we can move them straight into that job, and that allows some speed, but hopefully not dishonoring our other processes. In the instances where we don't have a person who is optimally qualified, who's doing 50% or more of that job, then we internally candidate it. We open it up, we put the job description available internally, we candidate that for a minimum of 5 days so that people on our staff team can apply. And if no one applies or no one is suitably qualified, then we open that externally and we candidate other people who would be in our congregation or in our community. And that's what our process tends to look like. In this case, and with the full assent and recommendation of the teams most directly affected, we were super geeked to believe that we found an internally qualified candidate who was just going to be great at the job and who was already doing 50% or more of that new job. And again, this has been affirmed and confirmed through prayer, discussion, and meetings together, and we're super excited about it, which is why I'm very excited to tell you that our new director of operations will be our very own Michael Moore. Now, Michael has an incredible history of leadership here at Trinity and also in the marketplace, as well as a desire to step into this role and to maximize it for moving forward as Jim Felver transitions from our staff team. Michael's demonstrated a willingness to sacrifice, to lead by example, to care well for the people under his care, as well as integrate and engage the rest of us along the way. He's finishing his MBA. You may not know that. At Spring Arbor. We'll be finished with that in July of this year. You may not know that Michael operated in the marketplace. He ran the Home Depot store in Okemos in addition to a number of other stores where he was responsible for over 300 employees and over $42 million in annual revenue. We love Michael Moore, and we believe and are excited about the fact that he will be perfect in this role, and we're excited about learning to grow and see and walk with him as he steps into this new area of ministry. So in order to maximize our time with Michael and Jim and the madmen and the facilities teams and to give everybody a chance to equalize and normalize and to learn all that's possible before Jim transitions, you might wonder when we're going to make these changes operational. And I would tell you they're operational as of yesterday. I just couldn't send the email fast enough. We've been making these moves over the last couple of weeks. But effectively, for your purposes, as of Wednesday, February 7th, 2018, Michael will be functioning as our Director of Operations, and the operations team will be comprised of facilities and our madmin team. So for your purposes, you can continue to do things just as you are. You can continue to send things to Barb, you can ask questions of Jim, and we'll let you know about additional things that are coming along the way as it's pertinent for you or as we need to make you aware. And hopefully this is helpful for you. Again, we want you to know everything that you need to know. We want you to know it first. And so again, this has been our best attempt at trying to create transparency, accountability, and we hope that encourages you along the way. Finally, I'd encourage you to congratulate Michael and the operations team. We're excited for them. We're looking forward to walking with them, and I'm sure they'd love to hear that from you as well. If you have any questions, you can let me know. We'd be happy to sit down with you and to answer any that you might have, as well as any concerns that you might want to address as well. So thank you, grateful for you, and privileged to serve on this team at Trinity Church with you.